Hi, my name is Haley Jones, and you're listening to 102.9 Radio History, where we discuss different events that took place in the past. We like to talk about certain events in depth, including relevant people, places, and other specifics. Those of you streaming online, like yourself currently, will be able to see the visual aids I provide to help explain this certain event. It looks like today we will be covering the Watts Riots. What an exciting topic! Only lasting 5 days, these riots in Los Angeles marked an important day in history and are still affecting many today. Let's dive right into it. Following World War II, over 500,000 African Americans migrated to West Coast cities in hopes of escaping racism and discrimination. However, they found both in the West. For the citizens of Watts, a city located in Southern California, blacks experienced housing, education, employment, and political discrimination. As racial equality seemed more and more a distant goal for these folks, the African Americans did what they thought was right and took a stand on August 11, 1965, and what would become known as the Watts Riots. On August 11th, Los Angeles Highway Patrol stopped Black Watts resident Marquette Fry and his brother. They were allegedly speeding. Backup was called to help the officers as a crowd of African Americans gathered to watch the scene. Since Fry's house was nearby, the mother of the men emerged to find her son resisting arrest. The officers began to recognize the scene they were causing, and in hope to contain the crowd, pulled a firearm. Catching a glimpse of the gun, Mrs. Fry jumped on the officer's back in fear of her son's life. At this, the crowd began to cheer. The Los Angeles Police Department, or the LAPD, officers arrested all three members of the Fry family. The emotions caused by the family's arrest enraged the crowds of Watts citizens watching. Less than an hour later, rioters began to fill the streets. Over the next 4 days, more than 30,000 people were involved in the riots. They looted items from grocery and clothing stores, acquiring what they want and needed but could not afford. Over 4,000 people were left injured from the riots, and $40 million in property damage. To make the chaos stop, 14,000 National Guard troops touched down and restored order. The revolt forced the federal government to address programs on unemployment, education, healthcare, and housing under Lyndon B. Johnson's War on Poverty. The Watts Riots was the worst riot in an urban area in 20 years, foreshadowing the many rebellions to occur in the years to come in Detroit, Newark, and other American cities. Although the riot was officially started from the aftermath of an aggressive arrest made in a racially unbalanced city, there were other factors that went into the riots. People suggested that police-community relations in South Central Los Angeles had been uneasy for a long time, and the tensions finally led to rioting. Others, such as federal officials, pinned the riots as protests against poverty and hopelessness of life in the inner city, and the lack of basic services in South Central Los Angeles as a whole. Altogether, it was clear the riots were started with people being fed up with racially unjust law enforcement throughout the city, as well as the other cities portrayed amongst the media. The Watts riots were such a nationally significant event that even Martin Luther King Jr. went. By the time he showed up, the riots were largely over, but that didn't stop him from making a speech and trying to calm citizens down. King was quick to point out the reasons of the riots were environmental and not racial, and that the economic deprivation, social isolation, inadequate housing, and general despair of thousands of Negroes teeming in northern and western ghettos are the ready seeds for which give birth to tragic expressions of violence. This was included in his speech on August 17, 1965. He visited the riots against Governor Edmund Brown's wishes to support those living in the ghettos who would be pushed further into despair and hopelessness by the riot. Amongst everything else he did, he offered to mediate between local people and government officials, as well for pushing for systematic solutions to the economic and social problems plaguing Watts and other black ghettos. His presence was a good sign for the people involved in the riots, lifting a weight off their shoulders and promising justice once and for all. Curious into what Watts looks like now, I found out things aren't much better, unfortunately. Those who still reside in the city claim that police are ordered to shoot to kill. A lady who has lived in Watts for 46 years now claims that everybody is tense, no jobs, zero tolerance in the housing projects. People are scared of the police. Hers, as well as other citizens' comments on Watts in the city, show a similar attitude to those in 1965. Hopefully, based off what they know from the past, will influence how they treat the city during this tough time. After all the research, the interviews, and the pictures. The Watts riots continue to fascinate me. Starting from what many call an unjust arrest, a 5 day long riot broke out, killing dozens and injuring thousands. But, after all the damage, the emotional and physical effects on people, as well as the financial, the people of Watts refer to it as a rebellion. The Watts Rebellion. This is Haley Jones, and you've been listening to 102.9 Radio History. Thanks for tuning in.